Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes. It's our weekly roundup of some of the big stories in tech and maybe some you missed. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino. This week, crypto legislation gets its big moment in Congress. The state of Pennsylvania is getting billions in AI and energy investments. And Nvidia can finally again sell its H2O chip in China. Here to discuss all this is our regular contributor, Anita Ramaswamy. She's a columnist at The Information. Hey, Anita.
Hey, Megan.
So we're going to start off, like we always do, with our Byte of the Week. This is a number that gives us a little insight into the week in tech. Anita, what number do we need to know today?
So the number I chose is $130 million, and that's because it's Crypto Week in Washington, and we're going to talk about it. That is the number, the amount of money that super PACs actually funded by the crypto industry spent last year to influence US congressional races across the country.
Right. And this was like a record high for the industry. I have a somewhat related number, a crypto number, and my number is $120,000. That was the new high that Bitcoin broke earlier this week. It's kind of bounced around a bit since then, but kind of because of all this optimism in crypto world about what's going on in Congress. So why are crypto enthusiasts so excited about this trio of bills that are under consideration?
I mean, this is really a moment that the crypto industry has been waiting for, has been pushing for, and lobbying for years. The three bills, which we can talk about all separately, are all potentially going to pave the path for crypto to really grow in the US in a way that it wasn't able to before because there wasn't that legislation in place.
All right, well, let's get into some of the specifics here. First up, furthest along, we have the Genius Act. This has to do with making way for the issuance of stable coins. First of all, Anita, what are stable coins and what exactly
Yeah.
would this bill do?
So stablecoins are digital currencies that are tied to some sort of real currency. So the most common example is like a stablecoin is a digital currency tied to the US dollar. One stablecoin is equal to one US dollar. That's typically how it works. And the crypto industry has been pushing for a while to get some clear frameworks and rules around who can issue stablecoins, who can transfer them. And basically, the Genius Act is expected to sort of open the doors for financial institutions to get involved in crypto in a big way, offering stablecoins for things like online payments.
Okay, next up, we have the Clarity Act, which is supposed to give some clarity about whether crypto is designated a commodity or a security. Does this would designate it as a commodity? Why is this distinction so important?
So, for years, there's been this debate going on in the crypto industry in the US about who the regulator that they report to should be. And depending on whether you look at crypto as a security or a commodity, it would either be the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US or the CFTC. The Securities and Exchange Commission has been really harsh on crypto, especially under the Biden administration. There was a lot of regulatory enforcement from the agency. So, a lot of crypto enthusiasts are looking forward to the Clarity Act passing because they want sort of that looser oversight, in my view, from the CFTC.
And then finally, there's this Anti-Central Bank Digital Currency Surveillance State Act. Kind of clear in the name, but this would prohibit the central bank from issuing its own digital currency. But help break down, why the advocates are pushing for this one.
Yeah, so this is something that a lot of conservatives have taken issue with. I mean, just to take a step back, this is not like the US Federal Reserve issuing a central bank digital currency is not something that has really been seriously proposed. I mean, the idea has been tossed around, but
Yeah,
it's
they
not really
did a
something that was
study. Yeah.
it's not anywhere close to coming to fruition, but it's a concern for some conservative lawmakers because they kind of argue that this would give the US government more power and more authority. Perhaps there are some privacy or surveillance concerns. So that was why they wanted to actually tie this bill that would prohibit CBDCs to one of the other crypto bills. They ultimately weren't able to do that, but that was what this group, the Freedom Caucus, was pushing for. And that was sort of what held up some of the debates around whether these bills could move forward.
All right, well, let's move on now to some AI news. This week, President Trump and leaders of tech and energy companies were in Pennsylvania to announce more than $90 billion in private investment in that state to make it an AI hub. We had folks from Anthropic, Google, Meta, some lesser known names like CoreWeave, which operates data centers, energy companies, investment firms. They were all promising kind of big dollar amounts in Pennsylvania around AI energy research, seed funding for startups, data center, and energy investment. Anita, what did you make of this?
I think it comes at a really interesting time, Megan, because this is sort of a time where we're seeing China really ramping up their efforts to produce energy. They're making a big push in renewables, they're making a big push in coal. And I think this is a concern for the US and for the Trump administration, which has pushed really hard for everything to be made in the US. With the big AI investment boom, I think President Trump is just trying to ensure that, there's a lot of investment going on within the US. And so that's why he was able to get these 20 companies come in and talk about all the investments they're going to be making in Pennsylvania specifically. I think it's also interesting in the context of thinking about some of the manufacturing jobs that have been lost in areas like Pennsylvania. And so now we have companies like Blackstone coming in saying we're going to invest $25 billion in data center and energy infrastructure. The energy needs and the energy use that the artificial intelligence build out is going to require is really, really vast. In fact, the energy demand from data centers globally is supposed to or expected to double. Some scientists expect it to double by 2030. So it's clearly a big demand. And I think what I made of this announcement was just that this is a sign that all these companies are, working with the Trump administration and saying they're going to create jobs and saying they're going to help fuel this demand within Pennsylvania.
Right. I was really struck by that aspect too, the kind of the framing of AI as kind of the next industrial engine in a place where, the kind of manufacturing industrial engine, a place that's very associated with steel manufacturing and that kind of previous wave, kind of signaling the idea that, AI is the next wave, probably certainly more than, kind of the software boom in Silicon Valley, which the the benefits of it in terms of jobs and, development didn't spread too much outside of, specific tech hubs.
Yeah, and that's partly because the energy demand wasn't nearly as vast for, some of the typical software applications versus what they are for AI.
All right. Well, now let's look at another AI development this week. The chip maker Nvidia says it can once again sell its H2O chips. These are sort of, some of its not highest tech chips, but it can once again sell those chips to China after the Trump administration essentially banned them from doing so back in April. CEO Jensen Huang was in China this week on kind of a PR tour. Anita, how important is this development for Nvidia?
It's hugely important. It matters in terms of the billions of dollars of NVIDIA's revenue was potentially lost when the sales of H20 chips were banned earlier in April.
Yeah, and this change was sort of, part of ongoing trade negotiations with China using H2O chips as kind of a bargaining chip. But I imagine there is, a benefit to the US in keeping Chinese companies tied to our tech, right?
To some extent, or at least that's what Jensen Huang argued successfully when he went and lobbied President Trump. I mean, his whole argument was that NVIDIA should be allowed to sell these chips because, he wanted an American company, NVIDIA, to be dominating the sales of AI chips instead of a Chinese equivalent like a Huawei or one of the Chinese companies.
All right, Anita Ramaswamy at The Information. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Daniel Shin produced this episode. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino. This is APM.